I ask you, how old is too old to trick-or-treat? Well, according to me and my friends, sophomores in high school, we figured that maybe we had one more good year of it. Some of our costumes were actually pretty dope. I was Alex from A Clockwork Orange. Brandon was an escaped convict. He had this orange jumpsuit and the numbers were printed on the back, with authentic handcuffs swinging from one of his wrists. Tristan was this wizard of some sort. He had this long red robe, a real badass wooden staff that was all twisted and swirly. Tristan also had a legitimate beard that no kid his age should actually have. He dyed his hair and his beard white, and man, he looked old. Dustin had probably my favorite costume. He was a trashy Santa Claus of sorts. He had red pants and boots, but he was wearing a wife beater, and his Santa hat was all greasy and nasty looking. His fake beard was adorned with cigarette butts and torn up lottery tickets. It was pretty hysterical. Andy and Brian were a disappointment, as in they didn't wear costumes at all, which was a savage insult because they wanted to tag along and didn't even put any effort into dressing up. Brian at least had the excuse of definitely being too old. He was a senior and didn't even want candy. He just wanted to come with us. As far as Andy, well, Andy just kind of sucks. Halloween night came, and since Brian and Brandon's parents were going to a party early in the evening, we all met at their house, and we raided their parents' liquor cabinet, and we got good and proper drunk. Andy reminded us that that wasn't a good idea, that we shouldn't be getting intoxicated. We all just told him to shut up. Dustin took a whole bottle of whiskey with him, adding the perfect addition to his trashy Santa. He was now drunk Santa. We took our pillowcases, loaded them up with cigarettes, smoked a bowl, and began our adventure. The night was met with many obstacles, giving us a forewarning that us youngsters should have heeded. Many of the doors we knocked on were met with, "Aren't you kids a bit old?" and "Do your parents know you're walking around with a bottle of whiskey?" Dustin would just say,
"The bottle's real, but the drink inside is apple juice, sir."
There's this really creepy abandoned building that used to serve as some sort of reformatory for juvenile delinquents. It got shut down due to asbestos. It's so old and nobody knows all the truths or lies or rumors that surround it. But the word on the street was that people had died there, that they were murdered there, went insane there, the works. "We shouldn't go in there, guys," Andy said.
Just shut up, Andy,"
we all said in unison. We, of course, broke in and looked around. We found nothing but graffiti and empty beer bottles. I know, break into a building condemned for asbestos. I know, dumb. Leaving the building, after getting bored and disappointed, there were these owls flying overhead. They rested on some tree branches and peered down on us, knowingly. It gave us the creeps. Then we saw a few bats mixing in with the night sky and thought this Halloween was just so friggin' perfect. We decided to continue on our candy crusade, and we went down the hill from the abandoned building and back into town. Out of nowhere, this massive Irish wolfhound jumped out of nowhere as we passed along a house. The only thing that stopped it from mauling me was the fence. There was a leash that it was tied to, and I guess the owner screaming at it from the porch. This gargantuan dog meant business. Snarling, drooling, growling. I mean, I know I was a little drunk, but that sort of sobered me up right quick. This beast looked as if it wanted to kill me. Seriously, I was just walking by and this creature targeted me out of a group of 6. It sucked. "We should just go back to the house, guys," Andy whined. We were getting really annoyed really fast with his complaints. After hitting up a few more houses for Hershey's and whatnot, it became clear that our friend, Drunk Santa, hadn't just been nursing the whiskey bottle. He'd been full-on surgical with it, and apparently not sharing with anyone else. Greedy bastard. He got the brilliant idea to smash some pumpkins. Finding the nicest one with the most effort put into it, he snatched it and yelled out,
"Merry Christmas, bitches!"
and pummeled it into the concrete as the rest of us scurried off in front of him. Andy was running ahead of us, angry and almost crying. "We shouldn't have done that, guys." Tristan, the wizard, slugged him hard on the shoulder. We then hit up a few more houses along the street, our pillowcases now halfway full. A car comes barreling down the street, fast as hell. It screeches as it approaches us, coming to a sudden stop. The big, angry driver man asked,
"Hey, you smashed my pumpkin?"
A wasted Dustin stuttered.
Nah, man. It was this guy in a Clockwork Orange costume.
Realizing what he had just said, looking at me wide-eyed, correcting himself, saying,
Not that Clockwork Orange. Another Clockwork Orange. It's a popular costume, dude.
The angry driver man sped off, yelling,
"You better be right, Kris Kringle, or I'm coming back and I'm gonna run all you punks over."
Actually, it was kind of funny, because as we continued on into the night to hit up more houses, sure enough, like clockwork, a dude in a Clockwork Orange costume walked against us with his homies, yelling in a sputter of ire, "I didn't smash no pumpkins, man. That old man was whack." The group of us tried to maintain stoic composure. It was almost impossible to bottle the laughter. "I told you guys," Andy said. This time I chimed in. "Andy, if you don't shut your mouth, I'm going to tell your mother that all of this was your idea." That seemed to shut him up. A few blocks later, Dustin cried out,
Santa's out of booze, children.
That's when a response came from out of the darkness on a hill above.
"Who wants to party?"
In unison, the gang says,
We do.
"Come on up."
is the response. Expecting Andy to start lecturing us, he instead says nothing. So, we climbed up the hill into the backyard of a big house where a huge Halloween party was in full rage mode.
"You guys want some beers?"
The man behind the fence asked.
Hell yeah.
We said in unison.
"Come on in."
He said, opening the backyard fence door. Obviously, we were at a university party, way too young to be there. We were drunk, high on weed and sugar and adrenaline, and thus, we didn't care. We mingled, drunk Santa jingled. Everything was just plain old good American fun, drinking beers and flirting with girls way out of our element. And that's when there was this dude. Long blonde hair, goatee, buff, supersonic smile. He walked out to the backyard and began the interrogation, asking us what our costumes were supposed to be. He smiled and nodded in approval at our answers. Then he got to Andy.
"What are you supposed to be?"
He asked. Andy realized he wasn't dressed up and said, stammering, homicidal psychopath? The dude laughed.
I get it. They look just like everyone else, right? They blend into society and all.
We all laughed. Dude's girlfriend came out, dressed skimpy like a slutty bride of Frankenstein. "Hey guys." She beamed at us with a smile. We chatted with her for a while. This hot monster bride, wasted as hell. And for some reason or another, she focused in on Andy. "You're cute," she said. "Can I hug you?" he asked. "Sure, baby." And that there was the kiss of death. Next thing we know, Andy is being lifted by his neck and shoved against the fence. The bride was yelling,
"Kick his ass, Travis."
Yep, we just happened to be at the party hosted by the university wrestling team. It all clicked. The size of these guys, the same shirts that they were wearing, the posters on the walls inside that one could blatantly see through the windows. We messed up good. It was a trap. We were lured in to be taught a lesson. And the bride, yeah, she probably just liked to watch dude beat people to a bloody pulp, be they kids or not. When my friend Tristan, the Red Wizard, and I managed to rip Andy away from the dude's grip, we heard our drunk Santa drunkenly yelling,
Dash away! Dash away!
Brandon, the convict, had already disembarked from the party. Brian just stood there, sort of in shock. Tristan and I were ripping Andy away, and Dustin, drunk Santa, was picking up all of our pillowcases of candy, slinging them over his shoulder, in a mad drunken frenzy, screaming,
Dash away! On Rick! On Brandon! Onward Brian! Tristan! Andy! And just go!
We barreled down the hill, almost falling with every step. The sounds of a good, proper ass-kicking, billowing from the backyard as we escaped. On the bottom of the hill, Tristan went into a frenzy and started yelling,
"No, this is not right. I am Tristofferson, the Red Wizard, and I will not back down."
After his declaration, a scream of,
What'd you just say?
was absconded from the backyard that we just narrowly escaped.
"Fucking run!"
Brandon said, who was already well ahead of us. And we ran. Ran we did. Fortunately, we were close to Brandon and Brian's house, but unfortunately, we weren't quite close enough. The wrestlers, they caught up with us, dude leading the team and all. He said to us, and I'll never forget this, any embellishments you can forgive me for, but this dude actually said,
You punk-ass sissy little mama boy bitches!
I gotta hand it to him. That was a good one. It checked out. The best insult that was ever dealt. And that's when Brian, the oldest, the senior in the crowd of 5 sophomores, approached 6 other lumbering, gigantic, college-age wrestlers. He began to, quote-unquote, chat with them. The rest of us never heard a word that was spoken amidst the whispers, but from 20 feet away, the knife in the dude's hand spoke volumes, as it shined in the moonlight, showing off its violent dance, slanted at an angle against Brian's neck. Nobody knows what was said at the time. Brian never revealed it, not fully. Whatever it was, it worked. And the wrestling team, they returned. They backed off into the darkness. The one time I got anything out of him, Brian said, I simply told them, you're not going to slit my throat tonight. Basically, Brian saved all of us that night. None of us ever dressed up again. I personally never really celebrated Halloween much after that, at least not in such capacity. And Andy, well, Andy sucks.